And welcome to another episode of Hollie's Hotspurs Live. Today I'm joined once again by Jay. Jay, how are you today?
A lot better. We actually won a game today, which is obviously nice. It's nice to come on and not be talking about losing, so that's always a positive.
I was going to say, the guy you kind of chucked under the bus was your man Lamela, so we've got plenty to talk about tonight.
Yeah, I got his shirt on tonight as well, so I look like a proper mug, don't I? Really.
And we're also joined by Ben, otherwise known as Ben Spurs 21. How are you today, Ben?
Thanks, Hollie. I'm really, really good. Yeah, obviously, you're nice to have actually win a game of football and not have to stress about it. So, yes, very pleasant.
It is. It's always a positive when you don't have to sit there and have mini heart attacks every 5 seconds watching Tottenham. So that's always a win. Well, yeah, so we've managed to win against Wolfsberger, secure our place into the next round. And to be honest, I've got a lot of praise for the team tonight. I mean, when I saw the likes of Dyer on the team sheet again today, I was thinking to myself, this is going to go either one or two ways. Either this is it for the game on Sunday as well, or it could be the total opposite, that this will be him done for the league. So, Ben, I want to come to you. Obviously, I've had Jay on the show before, and we've spoken about Dyer. So what are your thoughts on Dyer in recent weeks?
It's a really difficult one with Eric, because I do think he's got qualities as a centre-half. He's physically strong. I think he's very good at tackles in the air, but I think you have to partner him with the right person. I think we saw tonight when you have Toby who's alongside him, who can, if you will, mask almost the areas that he isn't so strong as. We've seen many times when he's partnered with Sanchez, he often gets exposed. And at times, often I feel sorry for Eric, because I think he's having to clean up some of what Sanchez does wrong. So, I do think he's a good, competent centre half. If you put the right top quality centre half like Toby alongside him, I think he can work. But you need that person with him in order for him to work in our side.
Yeah, that is very true. And for me, Dyer is, I won't speak too highly of Dyer, but it's true what you said. With Toby, I feel a lot more safer. But I think with Toby and anyone in that back line, I feel a lot safer, just because Toby is that commanding presence. And Jay, that's going to move me on to also the likes that we saw Dele back in the side tonight. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of talk about Dele on this stream, because Dele, I feel like, did come out of his shell tonight. So, Jay, what are your thoughts on Dele starting tonight? Was it something you thought you'd definitely see?
Yeah, I was pretty sure that Dele was going to start. The only time I'd maybe question if Dele was going to start is if we had a younger player like the likes of Scarlett. Obviously, because Scarlett doesn't play Cam, but the only way in this Europa League tie that I didn't see Dele starting would be for a youngster. And obviously, Dele started tonight, which is great, and his performance was amazing in the sense of, if you take away the opposition we were playing, he played really well. But sadly, I think the only thing is to take into consideration is the opposition we played today weren't that great. It takes a lot for a Tottenham defence to look solid. But he played well. He had a lot of time off the ball, on the ball, which in the Premier League he's not going to get. But it's good, definitely, for his confidence, to see the assist, to see him bumming forward, to see little things like, when he scored, I was anxious to see whether he celebrated the goal or not, and how he celebrated the goal. But when he scored, he looked really happy to score. Sometimes when players score after a rut, they look like they're not interested. But, I was really happy with his performance tonight. But you just got to wait and see if he starts at the weekend and if he puts in the same performance.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think that we all kind of want Dele to do well. And it's about time that Dele did show himself, because at the end of the day, it's only Dele that can change that. And Ben, that's why I want to come to you. Obviously, there's been lots of talk about Dele and this idea that he was good. He should have gone out on loan, this, that, and the other. And I had that strong opinion, because I thought he needed that change of scenery. But tonight, I feel like we've seen a different Dele. I mean, the goal that we saw him score first was pretty insane. So what are your thoughts on Dele's performance tonight, Ben?
Yeah, I know obviously the attention is going to be on the goal, but for me, his all-round play was excellent. Obviously, set up 2 of them as well. I feel that we saw his natural position is in behind the striker, because that's where he's most effective in controlling and influencing the game for us, where he can pick up passes in that role, just to free room of that pitch to be able to pick in. It's no good him sitting deep, because I don't think he can influence the game enough there. That role he plays in behind when he's there and he's on it, he completely controls the game. You saw that to a degree the first leg against Wolfsberger as well, but I think tonight really hammered the point home. When he's there, he can run the show, and it was great to see. Really encouraging to see him with a little bit of his old flair. And, I hope we get to see more of that towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Lots of people say you can never get rid of class, and I think Dele's always got that in his pocket. And we saw tonight, okay, it might have been lower opposition, but when we've seen him have cameos in the Prem, he hasn't really lived up to the expectation that we've all kind of wanted. And just adding on to that, Ben, do you think that's because maybe the likes of Lo Celso and other players that play in his position have been getting in front of him because maybe they were on their A game more than him, and maybe now he's going to push that competition higher up?
I think earlier in the season that was the case. Dele was in that informed start of the season, but I think as we've dipped out of form, and obviously we couple that with a few injuries as well to the likes of Lo Celso, you've seen the opportunities open up more, and finally Dele seems to be grasping it, because there have been games where we've been waiting for him to make an influence, and he, to be fair, didn't manage to do it. But I think as you've seen, the more he's played, it's certainly building himself back up again. Because it's still it hasn't just been this season. I think it's been most of last season as well that he was slightly off colour. But I think if we just keep playing on a consistent level now, and it just gradually gets back to 2016, 2017 Dele, or at least somewhere near that form. Thank you, Joseph. You just summed it up. Form is temporary, class is permanent. That's the player who Dele Alli is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we've all just been hoping to see that again. And hopefully now, like you said, Ben, he can push on that form. And like Kyle said here, Jay, do you think this performance deserves maybe a start of the weekend? Do you think we'll see him?
The question would be who would play instead of him. And again, that goes into what we talked about on the last podcast about Ndombele, in the sense of if we play a midfield of Højbjerg, Ndombele and Alli, I could definitely see that happening. In the sense of if Ndombele plays more, as Ben said very, very well, that Dele in the deep areas isn't as good. Ndombele would be a very good deep lying playmaker. But yeah, I think Dele could start. I'd like to see it. I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't. But after tonight's performance, again, I'm going to reiterate, it is against awful opposition, but that doesn't take away the promising signs that we've seen. The assist was great. The goal was unreal, and that's the thing. Well, Adam's just put a good point. I don't know if you want to pull it up, but, against Burnley, I don't know. Gio's been out for ages. I would never rush a player apart from Harry Kane. I'd never rush a player back from injury. But I think Gio wouldn't get in front of Dele for the weekend. But going forward, it would definitely be competition between the two, especially with the midfield kind of settling a little bit now. So that's that advanced playmaker role that's up for grabs.
Yeah, I think it is good that we're seeing the likes of Dele get back to his form, because I think that is an area of our play that we kind of really lack at the moment. So for him to be able to pick up his momentum again would be class, especially to end out our next run of fixtures that are games that we should be winning. And with our defence, obviously, it'd be nice to get that attacking football playing again with the likes of Alli maybe linking up the play. And that leads me on to the next question, which is the fact that obviously we saw Dele, but we also saw Bale tonight as well. And Ben, this is where I want to come to you. Obviously, we noticed that goal was class. And I feel like, even though I said that maybe it's a little too late, do you think this is now the time, the business end of the season, that these two players, the likes of Dele and Bale, have finally found their form? Could they possibly be our saviours, do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think the last week, actually, I think Bale's finally seems to have his legs under him and it showed glimpses of his old self. The first leg, the goal he scored the first game was beauty. I think, and you saw on Sunday when he came on against West Ham, he completely ran that game in the second half, and the effort that went off the crossbar, and you saw with the goal tonight, it's like watching Gareth Bale from 2012-2013 season. the glimpses are there. It seems like he's finally got his feet back under him, and maybe, just maybe, if we go all out for the Europa League, which I think we should do now, in the likes of Dele and Bale or India's games, they could definitely influence us to go on a big run in it. So they absolutely can.
Exactly, and it's the thing. Like, I think we've all been waiting for. We've all had our hopes on the fact of Bale wanting to come back to his old self, and we kind of know his pace isn't there. But like you touched on, against West Ham, he completely changed that game because he was driving at players. And tonight, having the audacity to be able to take it first time and curl it around, that is the class that we've missed from Bale from these cameos. So hopefully, both of them can push on. And obviously, talking about that goal was also came from Dele, so maybe like the old link up sort of style of play is coming back again, so hopefully that would be great. And obviously from that as well, we need to talk about Vinny, and because obviously Vinny hasn't been, I guess, in Jose's good books in the sense that maybe he doesn't trust him, because we haven't seen him in games that we thought would be the ones that he'd play him. So Jay, I want to come to you. What were your thoughts on Vinny tonight?
It's funny you say this, because I think Vinny's performance has to be put into two halves. The first half, and I think people might disagree with me, but he looked like a lone player in the first half. I don't think that he looked great. If I'd been sat on the bench for ages playing games that I should have been playing, I'd look more up for it. He didn't look particularly up for it in the first half. But then obviously the second half performance, you can't knock him with any of it. He looked like, the only issue I have with the Vinny situation is I don't think we've seen him play against an opponent where we can judge him fairly on his ability. You obviously, like, we smashed Marine. Our Europa League group was fairly easy, as much as Tottenham made it as difficult for us ourselves as possible. But he's we're yet to judge him really. But tonight, you can't take away his second half performance. I just maybe would question mark his body language in the first half. But whatever Jose said at halftime worked.
True, and that's the thing. I think the only thing that really infuriated me was the fact that he managed to beat the keeper, do a ball roll, and then not hit with much venom to get it into the back of the net. And that's the thing. When that obviously happened, Ben, I was thinking to myself, maybe this is why Jose doesn't trust him. What are your thoughts? Do you think we should just be able to rely on him in situations like that? Or do you think it's like Jay said, we haven't really seen him come against any real opposition yet, so to speak?
Yeah, I think there is an element of that, because we've already seen him in the Europa League games and the FA Cup games, and it kind of, the 2-3 weeks that he was out with injury, you thought that this was the entire reason we got Vinicius in, was for this situation, and yet in those games he wasn't ever selected. And as infuriating as it is, there must be some kind of reason why, because it just didn't make any logical sense to not play any striker. But I think as we get further, maybe the next round of the Europa League, when it probably will be a more established opposition, if the option's there for Vinicius or Kane to start, and we might see whether Jose really does trust him or not.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that's a good point to make. Whether the fact that if we've got some hard runs in the fixture list in the Prem, whether he's going to put his faith into the likes of Vinny, or he's just going to let Kane take all the glory, because in hindsight we know that Kane can go out there and do a job, and whether Jose is going to manage to trust Vinny over him is another story. But saying that as well, Jay, obviously I think the class finish from Vinny tonight was a ball again from that man Dele Alli. So what did you make on the fact that he hadn't managed to get that good finish off from the mark?
So just to go back, just to talk about the run, I feel like it's important to talk about. I had a look before we came on, and I was looking at what possible ties, because I was talking to my dad about, Dad said, Vinny won't play because obviously, you'll be in the big boys Europa League. But I looked, if you actually look at it, there's, out of the remaining fixtures, there's 4 fixtures that I kind of highlighted where no matter what team goes through, we should be able to play the same kind of team that we played tonight and beat them. So we might, if we get a lucky draw, we could see Vinny in the later rounds. However, there are still some big teams, and obviously all of the English teams are still in it. Come on, Benfica. So But going back to obviously that Vinny goal, again, that's what I was talking about with his body language. You know, that goal summed up what I thought about him in the sense of, you know, if you haven't scored it, he played against Marine and he was 1 yard out and he smashed it in. And Marine are like tier 97 in the football ladder, but he's playing the Europa League game and he doesn't want to smash a goal in against, you know, it just that just epitomised what I said earlier, just about his body language in the first half. You know, that game could be done. Dane Scarlett could have been on at half time, you know, and then it would have been a totally different picture. But yeah.
No, I like that you highlight that. Maybe what was said in the change room has sparked him on to be like, actually, no, I can hit the ball harder than what I did, like a B-roller in the first half. But saying that, Ben, obviously, Jay's just touched on Scarlett, and I would have liked to have seen him a bit earlier. But obviously, he came on and it was instant impact, shall we say. So what are your thoughts on Dane Scarlett?
It looks very, very encouraging. The fact you immediately came on the pitch and was immediately hungry and chasing for the ball. I mean, what was it, 45 seconds he was on and pressing up and winning that. And it looked like he was going for that shot himself. It just, the touch was a bit too far in front of him and Vinicius got to him first. Although he nearly went through and scored himself a couple of minutes later. I'd have loved if he had finished that off. But for a 16-year-old lad, it looks extremely self-assured, confident on the ball as well. And really, if you're comparing him to, I don't know, someone like Troy Parrott, who everyone started the season thought would come through on loan, this is just my view, let me know, but I think Scarlett's leagues ahead of him, in my view, already. And, you know, I hope over the course of the next season or so, we see more appearances from him, because he looks the future star.
Mm-hmm.
He does indeed, and people have been saying that his potential is maybe a lot higher than Kane's, and obviously we all know what Kane's like. And I like the fact that you brought in Troy Parrott, because I can kind of see what you say. It feels like the hunger and desire with Scarlett is slightly different to that of Troy Parrott's. I feel like Scarlett and Kane kind of have the same sort of outlook on life, if that makes sense. I know he's quite young, but I feel like he's very driven to be Tottenham through and through. And obviously saying that as well, Jay, I'd just like to come to you on the fact that obviously we've touched on Dane Scarlett, but I'd also like to see the likes of the other kids come on. I know you said, like Adam said as well, he wished the kids have came on earlier, but do you think it's something that Jose's trying to install in the team, that he wants to give these kids minutes, but at the moment, because maybe his life is on the line, shall we say, in brackets, do you think he's being a bit wary and a bit cautious about bringing these players on?
Yeah, well, going off, obviously, you know, that was my confusion a little bit at the beginning of the game, in the sense that, you know, at half time, I expected the changes to be rung. I was sat on the sofa watching it, going, oh, I can't wait to see the board go up at half time. The subs will come off, you know, and then I saw Bale and Lucas come on, and I was like, oh my God, like how, obviously get their legs going, obviously a little bit of fitness, but, you know, I would have liked to have seen the boys earlier. But, you know, I think with Scarlett and John and Lamela, for me, it was just nice to see them play. Good to get game time. And I've always been the biggest advocate, and anyone who saw my Twitter today, you know, I was looking at players that genuinely could break into the Tottenham 11 over the next 5 years. You know, my only worry is that we might become a bit of a Chelsea club, in the sense that we have all of this young, brilliant talent and they can't break into the team. But, you know, for a 16-year-old to get into the team shows that maybe there's that chance. And, you know, going off Troy Parrott, it shows, you know, Jose went out of his way to get Troy Parrott to train with Kane, to get his attitude right, to get all of this, and he's not doing it. But a more mature 16-year-old Dane Scarlett is. So for me, I know for a fact who I want as, you know, the next up-and-coming striker for my club.
Exactly. I think that's the main battle sometimes. I think it's about attitude. And I think maybe Dane Scarlett is leagues ahead, even though it might not be in terms of age, it might be mentally. And going back to attitude as well, Ben, obviously there's been lots of talk we saw in the documentary about Dele. And do you think that now maybe it's finally clicking for Dele, and maybe Jose's hard love has maybe installed something within him?
Hopefully so, yeah. It's been kind of the highlight of Mourinho's tenure, really, Dele Alli. You think when he first arrived, he immediately got back in the team and he got his form up. Then obviously went down injured and he kind of just lost his momentum. And he's spent pretty much the whole of this season trying to find his way back. And it hopefully looks like at last that he seems to be there. And as I said, when he's in that position and he's on form, as I said, you don't lose that ability overnight. He's one of the very best in that position, and hopefully for the rest of the season, we just see him starting more regularly there, because he's always a game changer at his peak.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe it was good that they didn't do what I wanted them to do and send him out on loan to send him to PSG and reunite with that love with Poch, to be able to install that winning mentality. But obviously, now thinking about it, we've spoken about Dele, but I'd also kind of like to touch on Lamela, because I know when I had Jay on a few weeks ago, he said some awful things about Lamela, comparing him to a bin. But what do you make on Lamela's performance at the moment? Has he managed to turn it around for you, or are you still a bit sceptical?
Well, I've got the shirt on, so I think that answers it. No, I only got the shirt on because otherwise we would have had matching tops on, and it would have looked very weird. You can see it there. But no, yeah, I think I said it last time out. I've had a love affair with Coco from the day we signed him. He's been one of those players, and I think every Tottenham fan has that one player. Yours is definitely Harry Winks, but you have that one player that, regardless of what their performance is like, you still have a soft spot for them, and Coco's always been that for me. But tonight, again, it all goes back to the opposition. I said to my dad, these lot are making Lamela look like Messi, and he's looked promising the last couple of games, but I don't know. I don't think it's the love story that I want to happen, and I would need to see a performance in a Premier League game to get me excited and back on the Lamela train. And especially with Dele coming back as well, that's more competition for him. So I don't see it happening. I'd love to see it happen, but I don't think it will. And I think Coco will probably go in the summer, to be honest, because you don't know what's going to happen at the club, who's going to stay, who's going to go. And if we're going to offload players, he'll probably be one of them. So.
Yeah, no, it is a shame. Obviously, we all want Dele to get back to form, and we're seeing that now. But obviously, I think Lamela's been doing pretty well. I know you say it's probably not the best Lamela, or the Lamela that we could have had if he managed to stay not so injured for so long. But do you think maybe that, to you, Ben, do you think maybe having Lamela getting to maybe a peak performance that we've seen in a while will maybe kick on Dele as well, or maybe kick them both on to try and compete for that space?
Yeah, it definitely will help them both kick on. I think they both work very well together in the same team. You've seen that multiple times. Lamela must be the most frustrating player I think Spurs have ever had. When he's on form and he's fit, it makes a difference, even though sometimes it doesn't translate in goals and assists. When you see the game, he is an influence, but it just can never. I don't know what it. He just never, at the wrong time, he always gets injured when he's just sitting form. It's so frustrating, because I genuinely do think there's a very good player under there. Maybe not the future superstar we all thought he was going to be, but I do think he's got all the qualities of an extremely good player. But it just leaves you with the question mark of, is it just worth all the hassle with all the injuries? That's kind of the doubt that I have in my mind about him.
That's the thing. It's hard to weigh it up, but the thing that gets me is the fact that I think it was pointed tonight, the fact that, Jermaine Genius of all people said it, the fact that he's managed to stay in a team for this long kind of highlights that maybe managers do know that he's got that ability. Maybe he does show it in training, but like you said, maybe the injuries is something that's held him back. Do you think that's probably the main cause of it, just all these injuries, Ben?
Yeah. We signed him, and he pretty much missed the whole of the first season through injury. Then he started coming on 2015, 2016. Then he went out for another year. And then it's like it gets up and running again, and then just goes down every time. And because you've seen the clip, he's got glimpses of absolute brilliance in him when he's fit. And, I think his high press up and style as an attacking player really suits us very well, but as I said, it's just like you think you get somebody that it just leaves you feeling deflated.
My fear with that. Oh, go on.
No, you go.
My fear with that is it reminds me of someone else, Argentinian, that we've signed that's had glimpses of stuff, hasn't really got any goals or assists, and that's Gio. You know, that's the only thing that scares me about Gio is another player who I have a soft spot for. He's an Argentinian, you know, he'll kick people up in the air. He shows a lot of passion, but you know, I think it was something crazy. Like he got his first Premier League goal, and it was like, I don't know, a couple of months ago, wasn't it? You know, and you think how long ago we signed him. That's my concern going forward. Like, you know, because it's a very similar scenario to the Lamela situation, and that's my concern with Gio is they just happen to be Argentinian playmakers that. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. You know, Gio and Lamela, it's something about the Argentinian players that are obviously very fiery. They love it. You know, Lamela got Martial sent off in the United game. That was a little bit, you know, shithousery, shall I say? You know, like it was, you know, and that made, you know, I used to, one of my managers used to be Argentinian, and he always used to teach that, you know, to annoy oppositions and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that's my concern with Lamela is just, you know, if he's just hitting form now, is it too late? And then the follow on from that is then I'm worried about Gio as well and what Gio's career is going to hold.
Well, I think it's just on Lo Celso, because I read this and I think it must be something in the clock, because before Lo Celso joined us, he didn't even miss, I can't believe this, he didn't miss 2 games in his career at Betis through injury before he signed for us. So it does make a question what on earth are they do? What are they doing in training, and also what's to do with our medical team? Because that can't be a coincidence. Just that any player who randomly gets signed this most immediately just gets injured. Because it's not just the Celso and Lamela. There's been multiple examples of it. So you know, I think that might be something we need to look at. You know, looking for going forward.
New medical staff and a new person to pick players, I think, is what we need to go on at the club at the moment. And that kind of brings me on to the next thing, because obviously we've spoken about Lamela and his injuries and how sometimes that has put him back. But I also think we should maybe touch on Lucas, because I feel like I love Lucas to bits, and I feel like he's got that run in him that you think is going to be class, and then he tends to run into players. So tonight, Ben, do you think, obviously, him not starting the game, do you think maybe Jose's got in his head that he's going to play against Burnley at the weekend? And what kind of your thoughts on the whole Lucas situation?
He probably will start him on Sunday. I think that can be pretty certain. Lucas is really the player that I have the soft spot for. Just of his effort, is, you know, he will just run and chase every ball. I mean, I think every Spurs fan will have a place for him for what he did that night in Amsterdam. I think that's made into history. But there are too many times where he plays very hot and cold. You know, he'll be on a phenomenal, go on a great run, and then just go missing for a stretch as well. It just doesn't seem to have the consistency. And as you said, Hollie, there's too many incidences in games where he makes the great little run. I mean, last week, the first leg, he made that little run and finished it off. You know, that's. You know, there's too many times where he gets in the position and then he either doesn't pull the trigger and go for the shot, or just try and lay it off to a teammate. And as a result, it just ends up, you know, in no man's land, and we end up losing possession. So, it is a frustrating one for Lucas, because on his day he's amazing, but this is it. The consistency is a bit of a problem.
That's the thing. How many times has he been on his day? That's the most irritating thing. And it's a bit like Lamela, because he's got it in his locker. It doesn't seem to play it out as many times as you'd like him to. And that kind of brings me on. Do you think, Jay, he thinks his place is fine in the team and he maybe doesn't have to focus on maybe finding that end product so much, because the likes of Bergwijn hasn't really pushed on this season? I mean, we saw tonight that he didn't really have many chances. I mean, he did some lovely combination plays with Lamela, but bar that, I mean, you want players like him to have a goal in him. What are your thoughts on Bergwijn, Jay?
With Bergwijn, I mean, I'm going to disagree with you here. I thought he looked quite promising in the first half, to be honest. He made a lot of positive runs, a lot of the turns that he did were positive. If anything, and my criticism of him was he looked too desperate to get a goal, too desperate to make an impact, would be the only criticism. There was a couple of opportunities where he could have passed, you know, and he kind of went for it by himself. But for me, with Bergwijn, he's young enough. That's the difference, and I think that's where that needs to be taken into consideration when we'll praise Lamela, we'll praise Lucas, we'll praise Bale, but then everyone seems to forget that because we've paid for Bergwijn, we expect him at his age, in his first season and a half at Spurs, to be this world star Premier League winger. And I don't know. I think expectations on Bergwijn need to be limited in the sense that I kind of look at it that if he was a player that come through the youth academy system, if you want to compare it, Ryan, not our youth academy system, but like Ryan Sessegnon's out on loan, so it's kind of like, for me, Bergwijn's the similar age to Ryan Sessegnon. So they're at that stage in their career. So I think sometimes the Bergwijn criticism is a bit harsh, but tonight I think he looked up for it. And the only thing that I was happy about was he looked devastated when he came off, which shows that he really wanted to pull something out of the hat tonight. But that'd be my only criticism for him, was that I think he tried too hard and didn't help the team as much.
No, I get that, and maybe I am being a little harsh. I just thought, obviously, because we all loved that game against City where he scored that goal, I feel like his goal scoring and his contributions have been quite low. And obviously, I know you pointed out that he was gutted, and it's just, I don't know. I think to myself, with opposition like that, I feel like you should be trying to play a bit more. I know he tried, but he still didn't get that end product. So, Ben, I kind of want to get your thoughts on Bergwijn. Do you think maybe he is, like Jay said, trying too hard, but do you think he needs to try harder to try and install that place into the first team?
In the trying too hard, I do think he overcompensates when he does make an effort, but sometimes he goes over the top with it, and as a result, he gets desperate when he's shooting. So yeah, I do think he just needs to use his brain in the sense of be smarter, but just use it in the logical sense of, okay, knowing when to pass, knowing when to shoot. On the expectation front, obviously he got signed, and then this game, his debut, he comes on and started and scored. And we're like, whoa, have we found a little gem? And he looked really good the first month or so that he was here. And then, unfortunately, it's just hit this season, it just hasn't quite clicked into place. And, it's a shame, because I think if he caught fire, really think he'd be a real difference maker in the team. I really honestly do. I think he's got everything to be a great winger. I just hope it clicks into place for him soon.
That is true. I mean, I suppose we've all got to try and sit in there. I mean, look at the Ndombele. I suppose he's a prime example of it. And maybe we have, as Spurs fans, set the bar too high because of that brilliant debut he had. So it is quite interesting. Obviously, I think tonight it was a bit freer. Obviously, I think Jose, I don't know whether it's on you guys, but do you think Jose, when he does play him normally, kind of, he relies on him to track back more than, say, Lucas? Do you think that's kind of why we haven't seen as much as Bergwijn, Ben?
Yeah, I do completely, 100%. I think it's been easy to tell when he's tried to do that as well. He's nowhere near as comfortable doing that as Lucas is. I don't, for whatever the reason, or if it's just stylistically, but it just doesn't suit him. Is it more of an old school type winger where you get to get forward and either create an opportunity or try and shoot? He's not this winger who can track back and help out on the defensive front. So yeah, I'd completely second that.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just thinking that the other day. I was just thinking to myself, I feel like he has kind of been held back in a sense. And maybe what Jay said tonight, he has been trying because maybe he doesn't want to be able to show himself that he can get forward. Whereas obviously in recent weeks, we haven't really seen that when he's been part of the side because Jose relies heavily on him to track back. And a couple more players I just want to touch on because I feel like he's staring at me from behind me, and that's Harry Winks. I mean, Harry Winks tonight, I don't know. I feel like even as a squad player at the minute, he's really letting me down. And Jay, I know you have some strong opinions on Harry Winks. So if you just want to maybe touch on your thoughts of him tonight.
The thing is with strong opinions on Harry Winks, because I do have strong opinions, but that's only because of what we have available at the club. That's my issue with, Skippy's out on loan, Harvey White's out on loan. And, Harry Winks tonight, besides him skying 3 shots, I didn't even know he was on the pitch. You know, and if he's playing a Højbjerg role, you know if Højbjerg's on the pitch because he's kicked someone up in the air or he's broken up the play or he's done something. But for me with Winks, I don't know. I said this last time on the podcast. If he wasn't Tottenham born, bred fan, the lot, I think there'd be a lot more criticism of him openly. I just think that I don't know. I think he's kind of cruising at the minute. I think he's just cruising along. And he's relying on, you know, he's Tottenham through and through, and he'll play the odd game. And if he's happy to do that with his career, then fair enough. But you know, there's a lot hungrier boys out there that will want to take his place, especially when Skippy and White come back off loan. So,
I mean, I like the fact you touched on that. And Ben, do you think maybe Winks is looking at places elsewhere at the moment, knowing that those types of players are going to be coming back from loan next season?
It wouldn't surprise me because, having seen all of us skip most of this season at Norwich, has been brilliant at virtually every single game for them. And even in the Luke Gibson and Harvey White looks very promising as well. I do think Winksy might be looking out the door. I think the problem with Winksy, and I think this applies with a lot of our central midfield players, a lot of the time we don't know what their position is or what they're the best at. We don't know what position Winksy is. We don't really know Ndombele's best position or even Lo Celso's. We know that there's good players in them, but exactly at what? I think that's a lot of the trouble a lot of the time. We've got too many overloaded who are all sort of good without actually knowing what they're the best at. If you're asking them to be Højbjerg and be the holder tackler, or you're asking them to be more like, I don't know, Dele and be a creator, I think too many of them are too similar with one another. And I think, in the summer, whether he stays or goes, and I think it applies to a lot of the squad, we need to figure out, what exactly is their best quality and make sure they apply it on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. Because the thing with me, I think obviously the best of Winks is when we saw him play against Real Madrid, and then since then, I don't know. I don't know where he's gone personally. I don't know whether it's because, like you said, Ben, like there's so many midfielders at the moment that kind of all play the same way. I mean, we used to always play the joke that he played the ball sideways, backwards, and hardly forwards. And now I feel like he's trying to prove himself by having shots literally everywhere on the pitch. And it's really frustrating to see. And I think that's another element we kind of need to touch on. Obviously, I like the fact you highlighted, Ben, that there's players in this side that we don't really know where their best positions are or who they're best suited to. And I think that's why at the moment this defence is all over the place. I mean, tonight it didn't really battle us that much because it's the opposition we were playing. But even at times, even when they were playing balls in, I was thinking to myself, what is going on with this positioning? And Jay, that's kind of where I want to come to you. Obviously, Europa, I feel like, is our only way to save the season. Obviously, with the likes of Bale and Dele coming back to form and where they should be, I'm excited for it. But do you think at the end of the day, no matter how good this attack is going to be, obviously with Dele and Bale back, do you still strongly believe that maybe this defence isn't going to be able to live up to its reputation and able to see us through games?
As long as we don't start Dyer and Sanchez, I think we joked about this last time and Ben touched on it earlier. When Spurs fans see Dyer and Sanchez as the centre-back pairing, the initial impact in our heads is going to be, right, we're going to lose, or one of them's going to do something stupid and concede a goal when we can get a clean sheet, or something along those lines. Even tonight, for example, the Dyer recovered well to stop the guy from running through and scoring, whether it was a penalty or not is here nor there. But if you actually look at the clip, Toby steps up and Dyer plays him onside. That is just little. I will, if we were to do well in the Europa League, I would need to see Toby starting in the Europa League for us. And again, but that's going to be the issue. Is that what Toby, Toby's kind of getting on now. He's kind of just coming out of the peak years of his career. Does he want to be sat on the bench during league games and then playing on a Thursday night every now and again, or playing in the FA Cup every now and again? I definitely feel more confident with Toby at the back. But yeah, as long as we don't start with Dyer and Sanchez at centre back, I think we stand a chance. To be honest, play one or the other, or playing a three at the back. That's the only thing I can think of.
No, that's a good point, and that's the thing with Toby. Do you reckon, Ben, that's maybe why we haven't seen him in the Prem so much? Because obviously, I always look for Toby on that score sheet, but like Jay says, he is getting older. Is that the thing? Do you reckon Jose's been saving him for Europa League games and those big games?
It's something I've not got my head around. You know, Toby is by a million miles the best centre half we've got. Age or not, I do think he should start every game for us, but. Although I will say at this point of the season, if you were just starting the Europa League games, I don't think you'd see too many. Given the fact it's pretty much what's left of this season, I think most fans would accept. Okay, if you're just saving him for this, then fine. But I haven't understood the last month or so where he's been sort of drifted out, if you will, since New Year. And as I said, he's 1,000,000% the best centre half we've got. I've said it before, you could put anybody alongside him, they'd look a good centre half. That's the influence he has. And the whole back four, and Hugo in goal, or whoever's in goal, looks so much more comfortable and assured because, you know, he leads and commands there. And taking that out of there, it's not just, you know, him as a player, but it's leadership and direction, which, you know, some of the defensive lapses we've seen when he's not there kind of speak for themselves.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's the thing. I mean, I've always said if Toby's not there, I look for Højbjerg, and if they're both not there, then I'm seriously having questions about myself because they're the two that I think are commanding. And we've kind of touched on this before, Ben. I kind of want to get your take on it. Do you think Højbjerg at the minute is suffering in terms of having to control that back line in the sense that if he's not there, it just goes to pot? Do you think he's running himself into the ground? Because there's been a few performances in recent weeks where he's missing a pass or his touch is too heavy. Do you think maybe that is what's causing him to have this lapse in concentration, shall we say?
100%, yeah. I think he's just run himself into the ground. The effort level, because he always gives it everything from minute 1 to minute 90 every game. And he has literally, you know, bar a few, he's pretty much started every game this season, certainly in the Premier League he has. And the effort level, as you said, where he feels the need to, you know, be in command of it. I think it's just mentally and physically slowly worn down. You've seen the last few weeks. It's just half a step slow to everything. You know, it is tackling, it is passing. It's a bit indecisive, and yeah, I feel sorry for him because I do think I think it's just as I said, run himself into the ground through just sheer effort and trying to keep that team together. Sadly.
Yeah, it's just frustrating because, like we said, who else do we use to replace him? I don't think Sissoko's good enough to go there. We've seen that Winks isn't good enough there, and it's so frustrating that we can't necessarily recall Skippy because I think it would be an ideal rotation player just to be able to give some balance to the side. I mean, obviously, I think that's pretty much on the Wolfsberger game, and obviously at the moment there's loads of rumours flying around about whether Jose is going to leave, whether this, that, or the other, and obviously, I know there's lots of people that are split on these opinions. I think it's the most split we've ever been as a fan base. And Ben, I kind of want to get your thoughts on this Nagelsmann rumor that's flying around. And obviously, I don't want you to say if you're Jose in or out. I just kind of want to see what your thoughts are on the thing.
My view is, I think Jose personally will go into the season. I think the Europa League is the only thing keeping him here at the minute. I think that's pretty much what the season hinges on. If some way we do somehow manage to win it, he might buy himself next season. But I think it will just go to the end of the season and he'll go. And I do actually think it will be Nagelsmann who comes in the summer. I'm actually pretty confident that would happen. I think everything. There's rumours that some of the board at Spurs are very, very big fans of Nagelsmann. They're very keen on him. And, you know, I think he could really be a revolutionary for us. And, you know, given the sit-word, I think that's what we need right now.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's just, for me, I feel like I'd like a manager like Nagelsmann because he has very much reminiscence of Poch. But the only thing is for me is, can I sit through, say, another rebuild? And that's the thing with me, and I can see Jay's getting a bit twitchy because I know he probably wants to say something. It's just that do we have the ability, maybe, I know you've said that the board are happy for Nagelsmann to come in, and I'll back whoever comes in. It's just, for me, I feel like that's the easy option, because again, it's like Poch. He'll necessarily be easily led, if you get what I mean. Will he get the money that he wants? Obviously, someone like Jose will try and demand it. And that's the thing, Jay, and I just want to come to you on your thoughts of the Nagelsmann. It's always good to get opinions from both sort of camps.
Yeah, so you're going to get a total polar opposite opinion on it from me. So, you know, I'll state I'm very Jose in. I'm of the opinion that we, and I know other fans of other clubs think the same. And to be frankly honest, I agree with them. I think as a club under Pochettino, we did get a bit above our station, in the sense of, we played nice football, we did well, but we didn't win anything. And in my opinion, if Jose isn't going to win anything with us, I don't think anyone is more qualified to come in and win something with these group of players. My only thing with the Nagelsmann situation, and it could, I don't know Harry Kane personally. I don't know anything about him. I don't know anything about his contract. I don't know what his situation is. It wouldn't shock me if the season goes as bad as it does and we don't win anything with Jose, and Jose is gone in the summer and Nagelsmann comes in. I think Kane might go. Only thinking that because, you've brought him up. I didn't bring him up. But Kane's already been through this with Pochettino for 5 years. Do you think Harry Kane's going to want to sit there for another 5 years with another young, flair, exciting manager who plays nice football? We've heard this story all before as a club, and then that's where we need to define our identity as a club of whether we want to be winners. Obviously, the big issue, and the thing is for us, is that everyone talks about money and spending players and getting the team they want and all this and all that. But the thing is realistically, if that's not going to change, bringing in a manager like Nagelsmann would be wasted on our club, in my opinion, in the sense of, it wouldn't. I don't. Having seen Pochettino and what Pochettino done with us, he got us so far, but he didn't push us that bit better. And I don't think Nagelsmann is any better than him. His Leipzig team, who beat us, let me add, they beat us, got smashed by Liverpool, and got, they got smashed in the, it's just like, he'd just come to our team and do the same, not to get smashed, but like, we're not at any higher standard of football than Leipzig are. So what, everyone seems to think that he's going to come here and we're going to play this amazing football, but his amazing football got picked apart by Liverpool. The same way before Pochettino got sacked, we got picked apart by City, Chelsea, picked apart. For me, I don't see what the difference would be with the same team if Nagelsmann was to come in.
I can see what you're saying, and don't get me wrong. I feel like the only difference in a sense is the fact that if Jose was to go, who would be the person you bring in? And I think that's kind of what Ben's pointed out on the fact that, yes, I know the board want him, and personally I will back whoever, but I think, Ben, as well, it's also picking out your options, because who else would come, Ben? Who do you think else would come over Nagelsmann?
I really honestly don't know. I know that lots of people keep bringing up Brendan Rodgers, but the question is, what benefit would he have leaving Leicester where they are? He's got them absolutely firing at the minute. I think they're unlocked to be in the Champions League for next season. There's zero upside for him to go from there right now. I'm really looking around. I don't viably see anybody else really at all that who, number one, would be willing to take the challenge on, other than Nagelsmann. But I will say, if it's chosen, whoever it is, they need to be allowed to reset this team for next season, because I'll completely agree with you on this, Joe. Whoever it is, it's no good just essentially pulling a plaster over a collapsed building. It's just putting it in the manager. It's not going to fix everything. Whoever's in charge has got to be allowed to say, "I need to reset this from scratch next season," whoever that might be.
I think so, and I think that's a good point, Ben, because like you've both kind of pointed on, regardless who we get in, we're still going to have those same problems, because we've got those foundations that have those problems in, like that defence. Like, it's never going to change until we sort that out. I mean, we've got a defensive coach at the moment in Jose, and he still can't fix it. And that's the thing. I don't know where to go from it, to be honest. And that kind of leads me onto the next point, Ben. I kind of want to see who you'd want to come into the window. Obviously, I know defence is a big issue. So if we were to sign someone to play in that defence, who would it be in the summer?
There's two in particular who come up for me. Is obviously Skriniar. I still would try to go back in for him. I do think he'd be an excellent. He's very quick. He's mobile, good in the air. I think he has all the qualities. And the other one, ironically from Leipzig, Konate. I know that there's all the noise about Upamecano, but for me, Konate is arguably just as good, if not better, in certain regards. I think either one of those two would fit in, because we need a centre-half who's good enough to play alongside Toby and then eventually become his successor, if you will, because, I think within 2-3 years, Toby, he is slowing down, and we need to bring that replacement in now, not wait until then to get it in. So if those two in particular, those would be the two I'd go for.
But I think that's a good shout. And like we said, we need someone commanding at the back, because I think, sadly, Toby hasn't got much longer left. And Jay, I kind of want to come to you as well. Is there anything you'd like to add to the Ben's points and who you'd want to come in?
I'm going to sound like such a pessimistic Spurs fan. My question would be, depending on our season finish, who would want to come and play for us? You've got, going back to, and this goes back to the identity issue we have as a club, I think, until we win a trophy. Ben said it exactly that. Why is Brendan Rodgers going to want to leave Leicester to go to Tottenham? Now, 5 years ago, any manager that was at Leicester would have, bitten your hand off for a chance to manage Spurs. And now we're in this situation where there's clubs where managers are going, oh, yeah, we don't want to sign. And then it's the same with players. Yeah, I totally agree with Ben. I would love to see Skriniar at the club. I also think Konate would be a great signing. Obviously, Konate would be an even better signing if we did get in Nagelsmann. But, for me, it's hard to answer that question, because I wouldn't be able to tell you any targets without knowing what pulling power we had. I could go and say, at the beginning of the season, when we were flying high, we thought we were going to get Sergio Ramos on a free. You reckon Sergio Ramos is going to not want to play European football next season? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so dependent on where we finish, what happens with the managerial situation. But yeah, the two targets Ben said for defence are exactly the same that I'd put on my list of players. But whether they'd come is another thing. They might have come at the beginning of the year because Jose, Europa League football, and then now if they're seeing Jose and just seeing the football we're playing and all of these results we're dropping, they're gonna be like, I ain't gonna go play there. I might be getting battered in the Champions League at Leipzig, but at least I'm getting to play in the Champions League. Do you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's the thing. I mean, it is all well and true saying sitting here and saying, like, who would you want in? But again, it's that pulling power. And I can see refs in the comments again with his Levy and Lewis out slander. And I think, although as much as we joke about Levy and Enick, I think that is kind of the root to our problem in a sense of the actual football on the pitch. Do you think, Ben, I know we've got a lovely stadium and I know the training facilities are all there, but sadly, the football and the players and the squad we're watching on the pitches doesn't really equate to that, what we've achieved in sense of structure. Do you think that's kind of maybe the best way of putting it? Do you think Levy and Enick really now need to step up a gear to be able to invest in players and get the football better on the pitch?
Absolutely. I think it goes back to what I said, that whoever that comes in, whoever the manager is, the summer needs to be given the license to rebuild the team from scratch. And I'm just going to throw this out. I think we could do with a director of football. I think Daniel Levy needs to move. Daniel Levy is a phenomenal businessman, and the way he's elevated the club off the pitch is second to none with everything, the facilities that you pointed out, Hollie. But I think he needs to move to focus on the business side of the club and bring a director of football and to handle the football side of things, to regarding the transfers and such, to. Because I do feel Levy has this almost obsessive need to control everything that goes on. You know, he's incredibly hands-on, and you know, and although that has worked in certain situations in the past, I do feel it's beginning to hamper us. The times where rumours come up, we're haggling for a few million for a player, and literally screaming, just pay them whatever they want and get them in. You know, I don't know what you two think, but for me, I think somebody like a director of football in the summer, I think, could be very, very helpful in that regard.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, I mean, obviously it is wrong to just say they're awful, because in hindsight, like you said, Ben, they have managed to produce this stadium and elevate the club to the next level. But again, with Levy, he does run the club in a sense in terms of players as a business. He won't make a loss on anything. That's why I feel like right now we've got so much dead wood, because he won't sell a player on. He won't take a loss on the fact that that player isn't going to reach the potential money that he thought he would. And I think that's the real issue. So Jay, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think this summer is ideally shift Deadwood out and try and bring in a centre back, or do you think it's we need to try and get more in than shift more out? What's your kind of take on it?
I've always been of the stance of, I don't know, over the last couple of seasons, I've kind of changed my viewpoint on where I see us as a club. I think under Enoch and the Motley Crew, or the Bold Brigade, whatever you want to call them, you know, I don't see any progression in the club. So in that sense, okay, you know, we're going to wait for a takeover. If we're going to wait for a takeover, I would shift out all of the deadwood and I would play every single replacement from the under-23s on the bench. You know, if we're not going to buy players, what's the point in buying players that are crap when we've got, you know, it just shows we've got so many good players out on loan. We've got all of these youngsters that are coming. We don't see them in FA Cups very often. We don't see them in League Cups very often. You know, this League Cup campaign, we have fielded a very strong team in you know, as our friend Jade says, you know, it's true. A lot of teams don't field strong players in that cup. But we are desperate for a trophy to change that image. So we are playing our big players. As for, you know, the owners and stuff, the only thing is I would say is that it's not going to change. And I don't want to end up like AFTV where we're getting banners and like doing marches. And it's just embarrassing in the sense of that's people like that, business people like that make money like that. They're not going to be affected by that kind of thing. I think we just need to get behind the players that are on the pitch. We've got to deal with the situation we've got. And for me, the only thing is if we're not going to invest in players, we need to invest in our youngsters and give them the opportunities that come up. You know, Jack Clark's on loan. If you think we get rid of Mora, Lamela, all of those players, I could, you know, name replacements for every single one of them in the under-23 squad or on players that are out on loan. And those players don't start for us. You know, they're players that are on the bench. So I'm not saying all play the under-23s in the Premier League. I'm saying why is Jack Clark not coming off onto the bench instead of Lucas Moura? You know, that's if that's where we're going to go as a club.
Yeah, I totally get that. I see your point. I know you're very much on the opinion of play the youngsters. Why not? Because at the moment, I feel like why not give them a run if our players at the moment that are deadwood aren't doing that? And I feel like there's two ways about it. I feel like loan deals for certain players do wonders. I mean, I think that's what we're all hoping for Troy Parrott. And I think it's the same with Skippy and Harvey White. Hopefully, both of them push on at the clubs. And we're seeing that already. And hopefully they come back to the squad with a bit more experience, shall we say. But I've really enjoyed this chat, guys. And I just want to say thank you for both coming on. Ben, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me. Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
Ben Spurs 21 on everything on social media. Anything and anything Spurs, you can find me talking about it. And yeah, just be sure to follow me around. And yeah, thank you, Hollie. It's been a lot of fun.
No, cheers. Thank you. I have really enjoyed it. Make sure you all go check out Ben's stuff because it is quality. And also, I've been joined with Jay. Again, obviously, he hasn't got his Lamela shirt on the bin, so that's a bonus. But Jay, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can find me streaming over on Twitch, twitch.tv/JayJaySZN, and you can find me spouting horrible dad jokes and footballing opinions on Twitter. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it again, and I'm happy to be on.
No, thanks again, guys. Hopefully, come the weekend, we'll be talking about a win against Burnley, but we'll have to cross our fingers about that one. But it leaves me to say thanks to everyone that has watched, and thanks again for you guys for joining me. See you next time.